an introduction to futures research from an intergenerational perspective. I could speak about what Dr. Librero and I did before. I could speak a little about the present. The future is for you, the young people who are here. No? And it's so refreshing to see young faces in this hall instead of the oldies that we usually encounter. Oh, kasi sa inyo na to eh. No? Okay, so futures research and intergenerational perspective. And it's also from the perspective of the Faculty of Information and Communication Studies. So I will be using this slide once again. No, our context is the Faculty of Information and Communication Studies. Just a few reminders that our faculty is quite unique because it straddles the information sciences, once called library sciences nung unang panahon, computer science ni Conican, communication, andi dito yung ating representative from the Department of the College of Development Communication na pala ngayon, ano? And media studies in GG, Army, etc. So we straddle quite a spectrum of disciplines. No? It runs from the information and communication technologies to new media and interactive art. We have, is Shari here? Is Diego here? King is over there, of course. Si Al. We declare time and again that communication is a pan-discipline. We encroach so many disciplines, no? Too many to be comfortable with. Recently, we staked our claim on a science that has been traditionally associated with biology, no? Yung autopoiesis. Kaya one of the first ones who appreciated that was our faculty member, si Sol, who is teaching biology. No? And our research is evolving, it is converging, and it is driven by our environment. Right? You would agree that that is the case. Ito nga yung autopoiesis. And so, what I will be showing you today, many of the slides that I will be showing you were used in previous presentations. The most recently, yung off the lip ni Diego. And then I also have some slides from an ACMC conference that Ems, Benji, and I attended in 2018, in Taiwan. The title of that presentation is Communication as a Pan-Discipline. And I will start with the slides that I used in 2018, January of 2018, at UP Baguio. It was a workshop on what Professor Abalos calls the topoi, or the topos. Jean would be familiar with this. It's the landscape of communication research. Okay, so that's where we are going to start. Now, I've said a few things about the Faculty of Information and Communication Studies. Now, I would like to give you a graphical representation of the research topography or the research horizon that we are in right now from a chronological point of view. No? But what I will be showing you are persons, initials of persons. So you could call them stars. No? Stars of communication research. And so instead of the topos or the landscape, let us consider this as a firmament, ano? Firmament siya, tapos may mga between sa taas. Ngayon, kung imamapa natin ito, dapat we have to situate this within a Cartesian space, so to speak. You're familiar with a Cartesian space, ano? Yung quadrants, hindi ba? Para mamapa natin siya, no? So this is my y-axis, and at the very top of that would be, this is my x-axis. At the very top of my y-axis, you have what they call itik. Hindi yung itik-itik, ah. Itik is research uh, from or using the objective or point of view, no? We do research with a subjective view of, objective view of the phenomenon. The opposite of that is called emic research, where the subjective view is given profound importance. No? So this is a continuum from objectivity to subjectivity. Sa ano naman, x-axis, you have your quantitative and your qualitative. Now, I assume that all of us here have a research background, right? Kasi mga research assistants tayo. Ngayon sa natin pwesto yung mga personalities sa communication research. I'm going to extend from FICS. Magbabacktrack tayo to the very beginning of communication research in Los Baños. This is the time of your grandfathers and great-grandfathers. No? Kung kailan nag-umpisa ang communication research sa Los Baños. Tapos, ewan ko, no? This is a subjective. This is my own personal map of the firmament, so to speak. You all heard of Nora C. Cabral, right? NCQ. Dito ko siya sinisituate. Very positivist, ika nga. Very quantitative. No? Alam nyo, communication as a science started at the University of the Philippines System in Los Baños with a group of Diliman-trained PhDs, gaya ni Nora C. Cabral. No? Ibig ko sabihin, doon sila nag-undergraduate, pero undergraduate as English majors and others. I would put Juan F. Hamias as one of the stars also. Juan F. Hamias is the father-in-law of Sir Lee Baroga Hamias, who is the Vice Chancellor of for Public Affairs of UPLB and one of our faculty members also under the Master of Development Communication Program. Kasama niya dito si Gloria D. Feliciano. Gloria D. Feliciano was the first director of the UP Institute of Mass Communication. She was pirated from Los Baños to Diliman to serve as the first director, and she brought with her sina Cesar M. Mercado. Cesar M. Mercado, one of his sons, graduated recently as a Doctor of Communication, a degree holder of under our DCOM program, si Mel ang kanyang advisor. Kasama din dito si Purisima Katigbaktan, na husband ni husband niya si Alexis. Mga medyo hindi na nga natin sila kilala. Pero dito sila sa second quadrant, doon sa pinakamataas, no? Positivist, quantitative, very, very objective in their views, no? Ngayon naman, eto na si Dr. Librero. Dumating si Dr. Librero, he came back as a young PhD in the 80s. And he brought with him new research methods and perspectives like general systems theory. Yung mga unang qualitative nun, he taught us naturalistic inquiry, no? Si Egon Guba, I remember that textbook that we used in his class. He was the first who taught the Delphi technique, which is hard and fast futures research. Pero makikita nyo, dito na siya sa bandang baba. Dumalapit na sa qualitative eh. Tapos, yung subjective, no? Bumababa na rin dito from objective to subjective. Okay. This is Teresa H. Stewart, who recently retired from UNESCO New York. No, dito siya sa medyo lumipat na sa qualitative. And then Antonio G. Moran, who is one of our adjunct professors, specializing in personal construct theory. Sino ba yun? MFL, Mendy F. Lumanta, right? Am I accurate in situating you here, Mendy? No? Not so well. You are nearing the middle compared of the others. Sino pa ito? Sino yung huling pumasok ko? MFL, yes. Oh, ako to, no? Nasa babagi, well. MPB is Melinda de la Peña Bandalaria. Am I accurate in situating you in the second quadrant? Shirley Baroga Hamyas. Grace Javier Alfonso. At the other end of the spectrum, qualitative IMIC with her protege, Arminda V. Santiago, who is now the Dean of the College of Mass Communication in Diliman. Jean A. Saludades. Okay, and there's Diego S. Maranan. IMIC, but, well, quantitative. This is Benji. No? Sino si JVS? Joan V. Serrano. Connie L. Khan. Concepcion. Very quantitative. But I'm not so... Well, there's Ria May Borromeo. Her... this is my understanding of... kasi ang interest ni Ria at that time, I think, is crowdsourcing, right? Crowdsourcing is to me... Where's Ria? She must be over there. Yung, tama ba, Ria? Quantitative, IMIC. Okay, now, what does this all mean, you know? Okay, we have stars in that firmament. Meron pa ba? Oh, eto, these are the positivists. Constructivist. And then, in-betweens. Okay. And you know what? All of us are converging. Right? All of us are converging. We translate this into methods and areas. Okay? Diego is interactive art and design, crowdsourcing process flows. That's Ria May Borromeo. Human-computer interactions, knowledge discovery. Ito na yung Montreal School ni Jean. No? Film and Media Studies of Gigi. Personal Constructs of Antonio Moran. E-learning of Mel Bandalaria, MOOCs, and so on. And there is Futures Research. Futures Research. Ito na ba yung nahuli? Hindi pala. We are converging. These stars are converging. These stars in the firmament are converging. Now, let me just talk briefly about Futures Research and how it started. It started in the military defense and intelligence sector during the Cold War. The Delphi technique was actually developed by the Office of Naval Research of the U.S. Scenario construction is a technique used by defense contractors in trying to determine what to do or what when a possible attack would be made. You know, this was during the Cold War, you know? And at that time, there was, you know, when I joined UPLB, for instance, the Office of the Director for Research classified research into two types. One is basic research, and one is applied research. Basic research is really going into theoretical theory and so on. Applied research is when you apply it in a certain project. Later on, at the time, Sir Lex introduced futures research and general systems theory. The typology was different. There was scientific research and policy research. Scientific research contributed to theory. Scientific or policy research contributed to policy or to management decisions. That's where futures research was situated. And so I will talk about that year, 1983 to 1986. This is what Dr. Librero mentioned earlier. This is the title of my dissertation, which was conducted then. The information rich and the information poor, two faces of the information age in a developing country. And I'm so proud to have the following persons in my committee. The committee was chaired by Dr. Librero, of course, who I say, as I mentioned earlier, introduced futures research here, and Serafin Talisayan of the Asian Center then, who was into the policy sciences. Flor Angel Rosario Braid was into macro information and communication trends. Gabriel Iglesias was the Dean of the College of Public Administration, who was, well, the policy studies was under their purview, of course, and Higino Ables. 5 yung members ng committee ko. No? Pinaghati-hatiin na kami yung honorarium. Hindi masyadong malaki pa nun. Pero because of this constitution, I was able to do quantitative insofar as macro level, secondary data analysis, yung census and statistics, where our labor force was going, no? Nakita namin dun sa analysis natin na habang paunti ng paunti yung agricultural workers natin, padami ng padami yung mga information workers natin, you know, the trending. Then we did qualitative also, naturalistic inquiry, and futures. Now, nung mga panahon na yon, there were some centers, global centers of futures research. One of them was in Israel. Yung parang pinaka-leader ng school of thought na yun ay si Ezekiel Dror. No? Scenarios ang kanyang specialty. The other center for futures research was the University of Hawaii, or the East-West Center, where you have people like James Dator, Dandy Wiedemeyer, Johan Galtung, who retired from Oslo and was transplanted to Honolulu, and other experts in that area. And so 3 years after I got my degree in 87, 3 years later, I was offered a postdoc fellowship, and I chose the East-West Center. No, kaya dun tayo ngayon. I will give you a retrospective of what I learned there then. Retrospective kasi meron na akong isiningit ngayon based on my interaction with my colleagues. I'll show you a typology, quantitative, qualitative futures. No? Yung approach ng quantitative is, of course, deductive. Qualitative, and Jean will correct me if I'm wrong, it's inductive. Futures, on the other hand, is abductive kasi you do a lot of guesses. No? You have a limited set of observations. This is where things are going. No? And then you speculate. No? You supplement a limited set of observations with informed speculation, and then you arrive at the best prediction. The most accurate prediction, it could be, well, others approach it this way, such as in my dissertation, I did a best case and a worst case scenario of an information society in a developing country. So these are called extreme scenarios. No? What is the best that could happen? What is the worst that could happen? That is research using scenario construction or scenario building method. I would classify that as abductive. The purpose of quantitative research, I would imagine, would be to generalize, to offer explanations that could be good to a large number of cases, or the most number of cases. In qualitative, well, my understanding, based on my interactions with my colleagues, like Jean, is what's more important in qualitative is understanding, right? Understanding a phenomenon. And that explanation or that understanding may be limited to that particular case. In futures, what we would want to do is to predict. Ito ba mangyayari? Forecast. Parang yung weather forecasting, ganito nga ba mangyayari? Okay. Epistemology is what makes, what could we call valid knowledge? Quantitative is, of course, positivist. Qualitative is constructivist. Doon sa East-West Center, ang tawag nila sa futures research, post-positivist. Meaning, meron siyang set of assumptions also which could be proven wrong or right at the very beginning, and that's where you make certain inferences. Pero lately, when I did a Google, now epistemology for futures is called social epistemology. I don't know exactly what this means. Maybe it's for the younger researchers to look into it. Scientific value, quantitative is, well, it's how probable your explanation is, and that would earn your value. Qualitative, it's the plausibility. Again, si Jean yung aking inaano doon. Sa futures naman, it's foresight. Yung, does your prediction, your forecast, your explanation of what will be, does it contain enough foresight to be believable? Quantitative, you use this to theorize. Qualitative use is, well, the profundity, the depth of knowing, of knowledge that you get. In futures, you would want to know impact. Environmental impact assessments, for instance. You establish this particular installation, what would be its impact on the environment, what would be its impact in climate change. We introduced this new technology, 5G technology, no? Yung first generation ng cellphones pumasok noong 1980, 2G came in 1990. 3G came in nung nag-umpisa na tayo mag-text 2000, 4G nung 2010. Supposedly papasok na yung 5G ngayon. What would be the impact of 5G technologies? There is a very strongly minded group who believe that 5G is bad for us all. Why? Because of electromagnetic frequencies, yung EMF. Kung natutulog tayo, katabi natin yung ating cellphone. Kung 5G na yung natin, mas grabe yung microwave that is emitted by our phones. Sa yung mga, our grandchildren, how many hours are they viewing Ryan in YouTube or CKN Toys or Power Rangers. Nakakatakot no? These are impacts that we need to know, and there is a number of futures methods that could go into it. Analysis, statistical, although you could also use statistical, yung inferential statistics in futures research, qualitative is thematic. May mga anticipatory research methods, and well, my postdoc at the East West Center in 89, I had to have two published papers as an output. The first one was titled The Informatization of Agriculture, which was published by the Asian Communication Journal a year or a couple of years after I completed my postdoc. And the other one is this paper or article, Development Communication in the Policy Sciences, published in the Journal of Development Communication, Asian Institute of Development Communication in 1991. I believe that Dr. Librero was one of the members of the editorial board of this journal. Incidentally, the first journal in DevCom, si Sir Lex ang editor, it was called DevCom Quarterly. May sample pa ako dyan 1983, I submitted an article to Dr. Librero titled The Proactive Information Society, a Scenario. No? And I'm very happy that it was published, although of course there was really no, hindi science ang ano niya pero it was still considered for publication. Okay, in this article, at the latter part of the article, this article started with the affinity between communication and the policy sciences because of Harold Laswell, who was the father of the policy and sciences. The communication persons in this room would know that Harold Laswell is the first introduced the first social scientific model of the communication process, no? And yung at the last part of the article, I listed a number of methods. Communication Technology Assessment, or CTA. It's a qualitative method that seeks to determine the higher and lower order impacts of communication technology. Higher, lower order impacts. First order impacts, first generation. Second order impacts, second generation. Third order, and as well as the higher order impacts. So it does not only look into the immediate impact of communication technology. There is this social cost-benefit analysis. This is Dr. Talisayon's area of expertise. Scenario construction, chronological description of hypothetical events occurring in the future of a particular system. So yung best case and worst case. The policy Delphi, a method of structuring a group communication of experts, no? Allowing a group of individuals, these are experts, to deal with a complex problem. I also used this in my dissertation. So it's a form, another form of the Delphi technique. These were the methods that we used then. Ngayon, hindi ko na po alam. But I understand that there are some very sophisticated methods using also a lot of computing resources, no? And in spite of this, in spite of that future research episode on communication, we were never able, I don't think there was anyone who was able to forecast what we now call in 2019 as the pathology of information and communication. I will mention a number of books that were very popular during that time. No? Future Shock by Alvin Toffler. The Third Wave by Alvin Toffler. Megatrends by John Naisbitt. They were, well, Alvin Toffler was optimistic, pessimistic, more on the pessimistic side. Naisbitt was very optimistic. But even within Toffler's pessimism, he could not have predicted that in 2020, hackers would be considered as, these are natural outcomes of our environment. I have a list of pathologies, I would call, information and communication. Digital overload. Ito, Naisbit talked about this, Flor talked about this, but not in this manner, that we're experiencing now. Distraction, si Dr. Flor, nakaharap sa kanyang cellphone, di ba? That's nag-record pala siya. We are distracted because we have to look at our phones every day, every hour of the day, every minute of the hour. And someone introduced the term digital dementia. Because some of the things that we do mentally, we are now dependent on our phone. Like, for instance, we need to compute or to compute. How much tax will be deducted from my differential sa promotion ko? 33%. You have to use your phone instead of just, ganito pala kadami, no? If we don't use our brains, if we don't use our gray matter, if we don't exercise it, this would lead to dementia. Kaya kung nakikita niyo kami ni Dr. Librero na nakakasulat pa rin ngayon, this is because we exercise our gray matter with new things, with Netflix, with YouTube, with so on. Okay. If we don't do that, if we let technology do the things mechanically, then we lose. Diba? Kung di natin gamitin yung muscle natin, mawawala yung muscle. Then there's this intrinsic bias of machine learning. I think Bobby would be able to, or Rain would be able to discuss this. Black, gray, and white hats, these are hackers. Digital disinformation and diversion in our politics, this is all happening. Yeah, I think 2019 was the peak of that. Colleagues from De La Salle University has concluded that the Philippines is patient zero in disinformation daw, no? They call it democratization of information. I'm not so sure how accurate this thing is, but you know very well what I'm talking about. Nung sa Taal, tignan niyo kung ano nangyari. Alam niyo, pumutok yung Taal nung 1977 kasama na kami ni Dr. Librero noon wala lang, hindi no, we were also covered with ash during that time. Pero ngayon, no, yung epekto sa atin, well, what was the difference between 1977 and 2020? Ngayon may social media, noon wala, no? Noon may nagpo-post na pumuputok na yung Taal, yung pala yung picture galing sa South America. Pati yung SARS, no? Nung 2006 was it, or 2004? No. Did it generate that much fear when the fact of the matter is that virus is much more deadly than corona? Did it generate the fear that is now being generated? Wala. Kasi noon wala pang social media. Ngayon meron na, no? Pwede kang mag-post doon na nagtutumbahan yung mga tao sa kalsada, no? Akala mo, totoo talaga. Commodification of the user, if you watch the Netflix film, The Great Hack. Facebook actually treats us as commodities that they could sell, our data, no? Yung profile natin, yung mga profiles natin, they could sell to certain companies, so these companies could target us for certain advertisement. Weaponization of information and communication. You know, the doutards and the Yung mga dilawan at saka ayun. Nobody predicted this, no? In 2019, no amount of futures research was able to project that something like this will happen. Tanong natin bakit? No? Well, perhaps we thought of information. The premise of my dissertation then was that information is a primary resource. Perhaps information is not just a resource. Think about it. What really is information? Ano ito sa buhay natin? Is it just a resource? Is it just a signal that produces a negative uncertainty? Diba? Information is measured by bits. No? A binary digit is a negative uncertainty. If you're certain that Mendy is a girl, diba, male, female, 0, 1, female, you're certain, then that's one bit of information. If you're certain that this person is black, that's one bit of information. It's one negative uncertainty. Yun ang pag-measure natin, 8 bits would be equivalent to a byte. 1,000 bytes is equivalent to so on and so forth. And maybe we assume that communication is just a human science when it is actually not. It goes beyond human science. Our assumptions about information and communication then are found wanting, and this is the reason why we fail to grasp some of the negative consequences of the information society, of new information technologies, of social media. When social media was introduced during the mid-2000s towards 2010, everyone was excited about it. It was going to connect all of us, and now it's being used for other things. Case in point, November 2004, I was then the Vice Chancellor for Research and Development. It is now a defunct office of UPOU, And my predecessor then was a doctor, a medical doctor who joined WHO. So there was a vacancy, and Dr. Librero got me in. Now, through a series of referrals, he was able to point me towards this opportunity, an evaluation study for the prevention and control of HIV/AIDS, which I did in 2004. And this JICA funded or gave a grant to the Philippine government, billions of yen, for the Philippine government, the Department of Health in particular, capacity building as well as equipping the Department of Health with virus detection lab. Yung mga taga-FMDS, meron ba dito? Sino Myra, nandito dito ba? No. Ayun, si Connie, third level daw na virus pwedeng i-detect nung equipment na binigay ng JICA, and the project ended in 2002. They wanted somebody to do a post-evaluation, and that brought me in. The first thing that I was briefed about was this. This is an HIV virus. Para siyang coronavirus. Kita niyo yung silhouette, parang corona. Diba? Si Connie ang expert dito. What is a virus? Now, nung pagkapasok ko sa project na to, ang assumption ko the virus is a living thing. Yung pala sa kanila, social sciences ako hindi naman biology yung background ko. So sa kanila, we are still divided. The scientific community is divided whether to call it alive or not. Why? Because it does not exhibit the three attributes of life. It is life. If you're a living thing, you're self-replicating. This could only replicate with a host. No? O nga pala, bio nga pala to si plant breeding nga pala si Mel. No? It's a self-sustaining. No, this cannot sustain itself. The moment it's left alone, then it perishes. This is self-organizing. It does not organize itself. It is just an outer lipid envelope, an envelope of fat covering a protein shell, a protein envelope. And what is inside? RNA, ribonucleic acid. Ano ba yung RNA? These are genetic codes, information. A virus that could kill millions, could cause so much damage in our economy, is made up of, parang yung pinakaano niya, information, code. See how what is information? What really is information? What is its role in life, and so on. Imagine an outer lipid or a fat covering a protein shell, ribonucleic acid, and that's it. Kaya tinawag na coronavirus parang parang crown yung silhouette eh. Pero ito HIV siya. Which again makes me look back in the past. I was a first-year graduate student. It was my first semester at the UPLB. Then it was the Department of Development Communication when this book became a New York Times bestseller, The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. September of 1976. This rocked the academic world because it introduced a new perspective on the science of evolution. According to Richard Dawkins, evolution happens with the gene and not with the organism. Okay? There's a distinction between the gene and the organism. The action of evolution is on the gene and not on the organism. See, Richard Dawkins, in 1976, he was a zoologist. Why should this come to mind? Well, in 1976, he introduced the word meme. Well, actually, he wasn't the one who introduced the word meme. He used the word meme in this book lavishly. The meme to him is the basic unit of culture. Evolution happens among living things. It acts on the gene. The gene is the basic unit of evolution among living things. Evolution also impacts on culture. Culture is subjected to evolution, but the basic unit of culture is called the meme. Now, you use the word meme in a different context nowadays, di ba? Basta may ma-download tayo sa Facebook na tapos it becomes viral and it's a meme. No, well, he was the one who used it. A bit is the basic unit of, these are all basic units. Bit is the basic unit of information. A phoneme is the basic unit of language. Keen is the basic unit of communication. Movement, that has body language. The gene is the basic unit for heredity. Meme is the basic unit of culture. And in his book, sinabi nga niya na the meme acts like a virus because it's a replicator, coined as an analogy. It replicates information patterns that use minds to get themselves copied, much as a virus uses cells to get itself copied. Kung walang ibang mind, walang nangyayari sa meme mo. Like genes, memes are pure information, whether the sequence is coded in DNA, printed on paper, or uploaded in the cloud. Imagine, culture is shaped by information that transfers from one brain to another, through a medium. Replicators nga ang tawag niya eh. It can propagate from brain to brain. Yung coronavirus ngayon, it's spreading. Sabi nga nila, epidemic. Inintroduce din ng WHO president yung term na infodemic. Yun yung meme transferring from one brain to another, sowing fear. Or, well, on the positive side, it gives us caution, Pero ngayon, how does it affect our culture? Well, wala na tayong beso-beso. Wala na shaking of hands. Medyo yung personal distance natin, mas malayo na kaysa sa yung sinabi ni Edward Hall na 3 feet. Wala nang intimate distance. That's how it is changing our culture. As they propagate, they can change, they can mutate. And this is where your post-truth comes in, your disinformation, your fake news would come in. That's in his book, The Blind Watchmaker of 1986. Okay. Another case in point, and this, I've shown this in the Off the Lift conference. What you see here is, are components of a supercomputer. That supercomputer could fit the size of a ball field. Sabi nila, this is a classical supercomputer. Ang tawag dito, this is owned by IBM, and it is called, Summit. IBM. There is another type of computer. It is called a quantum computer. Compared to the size of the supercomputer, it's just, kasi laki lang ng double door na refrigerator natin. This is the quantum computer. Instead of, it operates on quantum mechanics principles. Yung, sino ba yung nag-physics dito? Kasi at the quantum level, things operate differently. Ito nga, it could only function at temperatures close to 0 degrees Kelvin or 0 degrees Celsius, 0.003 degrees. Pag tumaas na siya doon, hindi na niya kayang, it's so hot, ang bilis na eh. Kasi ang bilis di ba? Yung mga processors natin, kailangan ng fan, di ba? Siya, ang bilis-bilis niya. Yung bit niya, ang tawag sa bit, is qubit. Q-U-B-I-T. So this is the Google's quantum computer called Sycamore. Okay. Last year, as I mentioned in Off the Lip, actually in 23 October 2019, Google announced that its Sycamore, its refrigerator-sized quantum computer, has attained what they call quantum supremacy. What does quantum supremacy mean? Mas tinalo niya yung supercomputer ng IBM. Paano niya tinalo? In terms of computational power, Sycamore outperformed Summit. Google fed Sycamore an equation that can only be solved by the Summit supercomputer in 10,000 years. And Sycamore was able to solve that equation in 3 minutes, a little more than 3 minutes. Imagine 3 minutes, ganun kabilis yung computer na 3 minutes, 10,000 years doon sa napakalaking supercomputer. I will have to introduce another term here, and it's called the FLOP. FLOP stands for, parang Flor, floating point operation per second. Floating point operation per second. If in a circuit, when your signal crosses from one point in the circuit to another, then that's a floating point operation. Well, in the brain, if you have two neurons, diba? If there's a synapse, nag-connect yung dalawang neuron, to, kunyari, sino nga itong taong ito? Si ganito, no? Nag-connect yung neuron mo, no? That's a synapse. That could be likened to a floating point operation. A floating point operation is what needs to occur. Yung kung nawawala na yun that's where you demented ka na no? That's when dementia starts in, wala nang synapse. Kung napakabagal ng computer mo, hindi matapos-tapos yung operation, no? Yan. Okay, now, PETA, on the other hand, is a quadrillion. That's 1 plus 16 zeros. Ganun siya, kadami yung PETA. Okay, imagine what a petaflop is. In 1 second, you have 1 quadrillion floating point operations occurring. Simultaneous and sequential, Kasi pwedeng 1 microsecond, ang dami na nangyayari, It's simultaneous and sequential, So this is how they measure the processing power of a supercomputer, Ngayon, imagine nyo, Summit operates at 200 petaflops. The human brain operates at 1,000 petaflops. The human brain is 50 times faster than IBM Summit. Kung yung IBM Summit, it will take it 10,000 years to solve something which would only take Sycamore 200 seconds or 3 minutes. Gaano kabilis ang isang quantum computer? Gaano siya kabilis? Ano yung pwede niyang gawin? Makikita nga natin sa mga ngayon sa mga yung mga write-ups that quantum computing will be able to solve the coronavirus pandemic, if such a thing happens. Yung mga ganun na, how are we going to use this? How can we use future research to find, what will be the impact of something like this, which is thousands of times faster than the human brain? Anong pwedeng mangyari? 2 days ago, Honeywell, another hardware firm, said that it's rolling out its own quantum computer. And the speed is twice as fast than any other quantum computer that has been developed. So imagine that. Kung ganito ang implications ang consequences ng information sa buhay natin, what will a quantum computer be able to do? People are now talking about the manufacture of quantum chips to replace the chips that we use in classical computing. Okay, so what we're trying to say here is that information and communication is certainly more than we appreciated it to be. There's also this group of physicists who are introducing this concept of ang sinasabi nila, reality is made up of information. This John Archibald Wheeler is the person who coined the term black hole. I think I mentioned this in the recognition rights of our FICS graduates of 2018. But imagine, people are now saying that reality, or physicists are saying that reality is made up of information underneath molecules and atoms. and particles, there is another layer of reality that is coming to light, and it is a layer that is based on information. If that is how important information is, then definitely we have to approach with a certain amount of reverence in our research. And this is the reason why we're into autopoiesis. We've adopted this biological concept as our theoretical buttress in the Faculty of Information and Communication Studies. And the next 3 slides, which is actually my last ones, is something that I promised the Chancellor. Given all this, what we know right now about information and what the trends on information and communication studies, how should we, the Faculty of Information and Communication Studies, position ourselves? Well, first we have to agree on what we stand for, on what we believe in, and I showed these 3 slides to our off-the-lip participants, and I'd like to share it with you. Of course, this still has to be vetted by our faculty, no? We believe in the essential nature of information and communication and the significant role these play in our evolution as a species and the entire scheme of things. We believe that information and communication lead to cognition within living systems and thus creates, sustains, and generates life. We believe that information determines our realities, and communication is a critical function among all living systems at all levels. That there is more to information and communication literacy than the ability to utilize them. That literacy extends to the understanding of how these shape our past, present, and future. In other words, how it shapes our very existence. We believe that information and communication bring power to the user, and that this power should be used responsibly and conscientiously. We believe in the moral, ethical, and productive use and application of ICTs, communication strategies, techniques, and technologies. We declare that understanding and explaining the essential nature of information and communication and their implications on our economic, social, and cultural lives are significant academic pursuits and personal endeavors. We declare that this knowledge should be scientifically arrived at, rigorously, periodically validated, and appropriately shared. Lastly, we affirm that this faculty will serve as a platform for generating this knowledge through research, promoting it through instruction, and applying it through policy formulation and program planning. We affirm that this faculty will design and develop appropriate technology solutions and applications guided by this knowledge. A postscript. We had this roundtable discussion on openness, and I presented a paper titled The Invisible Teacher, where I had the following observation. May mga predictions on the teacher, or, well, observations. The teacher is not the sole authority in an online classroom. Technology is fast making the traditional teacher redundant. Technology is fast making the conventional university irrelevant. Ito naman this postscript is for the Futures research series. No? I mentioned that during the 70s and the 80s, the more popular books on futures research were Alvin Toffler's, John Naisbitt's. Ngayon, you've heard of Peter Diamandis? You've heard of Synchronicity University? You've heard of the X Prize in technology? Peter Diamandis founded Synchronicity University. He gives the award called X Prize. No? Recently, he collaborated with a guru of one area research interest also, yung flow, si Stephen Kotler. This is what that's Peter Diamandis. They collaborated on a book, The Future is Faster Than You Think. Available in Amazon. No? There's an audio version. Yeah, Simon & Schuster, Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler, 2019. December 2019 siya lumabas. It's so very new. They talk about so many things based on, well, scenarios, rigorous research, Chapter 8, The Future of Education. Okay. Ito yung sinasabi nila, what will happen. Okay. Sabi natin kanina, the teachers now becoming irrelevant. Well, they're saying that by 2030 or 2040, we no longer need teachers. We only have Android teachers. Well, this is for primary education. No? Primary education. We should make available 1 billion Android teachers per year. Your smartphones, your tablets, Android tablets. This would be the teachers. What would be the role of open universities? Taga-develop ng content at saka taga-administer ng platform, taga-ano ng platform. Hindi na makakayanan ng classrooms to educate all the students. So they're saying, eto na, the future of education would be Android teachers. The same technology converging on our theaters is heading for our classrooms. What are these technologies? 3D, immersive technologies, no? VR, the ultimate field trip. Yun yung title ng section ng libro niya. Ito yung thesis ni Bobby Figueroa eh. Ito yung dissertation niya na ginagawa sa Japan, no? And this is part of his book, Virtual Reality, the ultimate field trip. You want to do a field trip inside the pyramids of Giza, then you use your VR headset. AR and AI, individualized learning design, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, based on the artificial or machine learning, then your learning design could be individualized. The pattern would follow the individualized user. And this is something that we are now doing here at UPOU. We are actually feeding our learners meta skills, not discrete skills, not in the curriculum, but in the delivery system, in the way that we teach, in the way that they learn. They would have to learn meta skills, which is not being taught of in conventional universities. So we're doing this already. Now, question is, will we be making the same mistake as when we did futures research for information and communication technologies? Will our appreciation or our assumptions of education sa Faculty of Education or of development sa Management and Development Studies, would it be mature enough to cover all of the salient features that would manifest in the future? Thank you very much.